Good morning. I'm with James Anderson, Chairman and CEO of Guanajuato Silver. The symbol for Guanajuato is GSVR on the TSX Venture. And Guanajuato Silver is a company that I've actually gone to visit in Mexico. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to go down there and see the operations. And Guanajuato Silver is one of the few actual silver primary companies out there. There's a lot of companies with silver in their name, but with Guanajuato Silver, you actually do get a good helping of silver. And they just made a big acquisition. So let's talk about it with James. James, how are you today?
I'm really good. I'm in Guanajuato. It's beautiful here this time of year, as you know, and we've been working really hard on this transaction for a number of months. So it's good just to be able to take a breath and and get ready to do all of the work that's necessary to integrate Bolanitos into the rest of our operations.
Very good. The market response to the news has been extremely positive. When I first saw the news Monday morning and I delved into it and I read it and I thought about it and I looked at Bolanitos, I said, hold on, how did they get this asset at this price? So tell us, how did it come together?
Well, we started to talk a number of months ago. Silver and gold prices were somewhat lower then. But I think, also Endeavour Silver, the seller, recognizes that we are the natural buyer. The transaction that we did with them 4 years ago for El Cubo went smoothly, and I think they were very happy with that. Yes, maximizing price, of course, is paramount to public companies, but also making sure that they're vending that, for them, a non-core asset at this point to a company that they feel comfortable with, both in the negotiating stage and the transition stage and the for the future of the mine and the 500 or so people who work there.
All right, so I want to ask you about some of the nitty-gritty here. The market likes it. In fact, you've basically added the cost of this acquisition in market cap since Monday morning, if my math is correct. So whenever we see that in the mining sector, that's a very good sign, because usually when companies make an acquisition that involves a big chunk of cash and more shares, it's usually downward for the share price. So this is a very good response. Let's get into the assets. So the Bolanitos asset was sort of Endeavor's non-core mine. They had it like fourth on their presentation. Tell us about the asset. Maybe you can share your screen and we'll go through some slides.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think that'll be helpful, and because the asset's quite new to our company and that sort of thing, Rob. So I might bounce around a little bit, sort of slide to slide, if you will.
Okay, cool.
Sure. So we put together. Here I am in Guanajuato. Rob, you've been here. You know how charming the place is, and the 450-year mining history that exists here is the reason why we're here, and the reason why Guanajuato Silver wants to consolidate this mining district. Here is Bolanitos, or at least one slide of it. As you mentioned, it's a $50 million acquisition, only $30 million in cash to start with. And I think that enables a company like Guanajuato Silver to be able to put up their hand and say, yeah, we can do this. We're in the game. Where is it and what is it? So, as of a couple of days ago, these were our assets, with Cubo, Valenciana, and San Ignacio all being in production, Orcon and Penguico being development assets. Now, though, we've added Bolanitos, which is in production. And in a lot of ways, Rob, in January, Bolanitos is going to be Guanajuato Silver's best mine. And I'll run through some of the past production history, the recent past production history of Bolanitos. Also in the transaction is Cebada. It is a past producing mine. It's not in operation right now, but it's a direct extension of what we're doing at Valenciana. And for me, this is very quickly becoming a fantastic, giant exploration project and development project right in the heart of Guanajuato. The blue claim blocks, this is what we're buying. At Bolanitos, they extract material from 3 different mines, San Miguel, La Luz, and Lucero. And you can see just how close our San Ignacio mine is to their operations. Currently, when we produce material at San Ignacio, we truck it about 25 kilometers to the Valenciana plant called Cata, or we truck it an even further distance to Cubo. Well, we're not going to have to do that anymore. The Bolanitos plant also is a little bit underutilized, and we're going to be able to take all the San Ignacio material and process it through Bolanitos. Production, 2.4 million silver equivalent ounces in 2024. Endeavour's forecast for 2025 is a little bit lower at 2.3. Free cash flow of $9.5 million in 2024. Again, Endeavour's forecast of 3.5 million in 2025, although those forecast numbers were done at, I believe, about $34 silver. So certainly I think that will be enhanced. The resources in total, maybe something like 27 million silver equivalent ounces, which is similar in total in all categories. Arm waving a little bit here. Our San Ignacio mine has a similar amount of silver equivalent ounces in resource, just like at Bolanitos and well, at both mines. There's a large component of that that's inferred, and we would hope to convert that into a higher category over the next several years. I'll just point out the very steady state production, and I think Endeavour really has to be commended for this. This is not easy at narrow vein high grade systems in Mexico, but you can see they've basically done 2.4 million silver equivalent ounces every year for the last 4 years. And I believe that we can continue to do that with their operations. I'll look at that resource that I was talking about, and then I'll just show you a couple more slides, Rob, and then maybe we'll just interact a little bit more in more of a conversation. But there's San Ignacio. That's 1 kilometer. You can see on the scale bar down here. So moving material from San Ignacio to their plant, which is right about here, it's only a few kilometers away. So, I mean, there's instantaneous savings in our transportation costs. Here's our San Ignacio operation, our waste pile right here. This is their waste pile. And, for the uninitiated, waste is simply rock that doesn't have enough gold and silver in it to pay. So you can see one of their waste piles. I like to say it's about a 7-iron shot away from our San Ignacio operation. We're very excited about integrating this. A lot of times, you see M&A in the mining business, Rob. A company that's got a mine in Quebec, and they do a deal to purchase or merge with a mining operation that's in West Africa, and you go, okay, so how does that help exactly? But I think here it's very obvious that the combination of these mining assets will be very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, the transaction makes a lot of sense on a number of levels. So let's get into it. So first thing that drew my attention during your brief presentation was the drop in free cash flow from 2024 to 2025 at Bolanitos. Can you explain that to us? And yeah, so I mean, obviously $34 silver is pretty conservative at this point in time. So maybe that free cash flow number is closer to 5 million or maybe even 6 million. But what accounts for the drop off? Was there some CapEx expenditures?
Yeah, so there's a number of different ways to answer the question. Number one, because of the various regulatory considerations, we have to be careful about how we might describe, future production, future cash flow, future earnings from Bolanitos or elsewhere. So we're deliberately and necessarily being conservative in that we're simply using Endeavour's forecasts at the beginning of last year. So I would say, if you really want to get bullish and wave your arms a little bit, the difference, between the cash flow established at $34 silver versus 50, or the cash flow established at, let's say, $3,200 gold and $4,000 gold. That, you know, a lot of that goes right to the bottom line. So, you know, I'm going to remain optimistic that those numbers are indeed quite conservative, especially on a go-forward basis. Your question about CapEx, Endeavour does a really good job of maintaining the capital spend at all of their mines. That includes Bolanitos, and very consistently they spend about $15 million each year on sustaining capital, and we would hope to continue to do that in the future.
Okay. If San Ignacio did not exist, okay, if that asset was not yours or wasn't even there, would you have done this deal?
That's a great question. Let's just look at this map. So if, you know, theoretically, it's an interesting question. I am pretty good with theoretical questions, but I don't know that I've ever presented this one for myself. So if San Ignacio did not exist, yes, I think we would. I think we would have, because I think the greater raison d'etre for Guanajuato Silver to continue to consolidate the Guanajuato mining district, I think that, you know, on this map, it's evident that, yeah, that would be pretty helpful, even without the very obvious synergies of having San Ignacio right beside Bolanitos.
Okay, so now you do have the San Ignacio mine, and based upon this latest deck, you have like 30 million, you know, silver equivalent ounces there in, you know, resources across categories. So that's pretty substantial. And then add it to what's already at Bolanitos, and suddenly we're getting some real scale here. So, look, I know the future is difficult to forecast, but what's the goal here? I mean, is it to really max out the mill there and get up to the, you know, 1,600 tons per day?
Yes, some smart guy once said that you know, predictions are very difficult to make, especially ones about the future.
Exactly, especially in mining.
So I do have a slide in the deck that talks about that just a little bit. Let me. This is some of the obvious exploration targets that we've got within, you know, as extensions of ours and Bolanitos's operations currently. But I think this deck talks to what you're talking about a little bit. So in 2024, utilization at Bolanitos, the utilization of the plant was at about 73%. At our two plants in the Guanajuato area, we have a third at Topia in Durango, but at our two plants, you know, we're under 70%. So I don't want to make, you know, any hard and fast decisions here, or, you know, talk to your audience as if these decisions have been made. But I think it's pretty easy to see that further rationalization and you know, having more efficiencies within our processing in Guanajuato can be achieved. And then to your other question, I guess, really, you know, can we take the 73% utilization, bring it up to 90 at Bolanitos, and divert all of the San Ignacio material there? Yes, there's ample room to do that within the plant currently.
And you flip through a few slides there showing some of the exploration targets. Can you walk us through that a little bit in terms of the upside that you still see at Bolanitos?
Absolutely. So I stopped here and hovered over this for a few minutes, but we didn't really comment on it. These are some exploration drill results that go back to July of this year at San Ignacio, and really they're excellent. The grades are very good, and in places that we've drilled there, the veins widen. You know, a lot of times in the Guanajuato area, we are mining veins that are 3/4 of a meter in width, right? Here, we've intercepted areas where those veins widen out in the San Ignacio area, and we get, you know, 4, 6, 8 meters of true width. That's really, really helpful for us. Also, if you look at, I don't have it in the slide deck, but if you look at some of Endeavour's exploration at Bolanitos this year, it too is really good. So I think we've got ample places and spaces to be able to continue to explore. And then on these slides, we just point out, so in the red here, those are mineral blocks that are the Bolanitos blocks, and ours are in purple. Well, generally speaking, in Mexico, nobody drills within about 30 meters of a claim boundary. Okay, that's just not supposed to be done. Well, we don't have that problem anymore, and so therefore joining this block and this block sure seems obvious to me. Fresnillo, which has a lot of claims in the area, they've got a small block right here. I think that this transaction will drive us towards being able to have a further conversation with Fresnillo, and God willing, do something with this. Certainly a company of that size isn't going to do something with a small claim block like this, but it'll be very helpful for us. And then one of the major structures that we mine today at San Ignacio is called Meladito. Well, there is a natural extension here onto Bolanitos ground. Endeavour's never really pursued it because they don't have services, they don't have access in the area. But for us, simply driving, along that corridor as an extension of Meladito totally makes sense. So, there's a look at a lot of the low-hanging exploration fruit for you.
Very good. So your goal is really to be the consolidator of this whole region. I mean, you've been very aggressive, and this is the latest step in that plan.
It's fun. Well, a couple of things. When I first came to Guanajuato, which is about 5 years ago, and at that time, the Guanajuato Silver had a different name. We had one project that, as you remember, Rob, because you've been with us. You've been with us all the way along. We had one project called Penguico, and after looking around for really quite a short period of time in Guanajuato, I realized that it was a fairly unique situation. Guanajuato is one of the great silver mining camps, of history on the planet. And yet at that time, it was the ownership structure of all the mining claims was divvied up into a whole bunch of different companies, and that they included Endeavour, they included Great Panther, certainly Fresnillo, and then, some smaller players. And so I thought, well, consolidating the district, that's a really worthy business ambition. So, let's try it. And I think the reason I was laughing a moment ago is because in some ways I can look and go, wow, well, I've even got a slide on it. You look at from our acquisition of Kubo in 2021, the other 3 mines that we purchased in 2022, consolidation and trying to process material from other projects in 23 and 24, and now Bolanitos. In some ways, you look at that and you go, wow, that's really, really fast. And yet, when you're in the midst of it, all you can do is go, God, why is this taking so long?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting to be, along for the ride for the last, I guess it's now approaching 6 years, James. And there's been a lot of ups and downs, no doubt about it. And it's looked great at times, and it's also looked pretty bleak at times. I got to be honest. But you're on the upswing again. Silver and gold prices are at your back. You got some nice tailwinds there. And it seems to me like 2025 has not just been a gold and silver price story for the company. You've been executing better, and you're actually following through on your plan. And so, I want to talk a little bit about the numbers and the outlook. I mean, look, I go through the deck, I see the Bolanitos, acquisition. I add up all the silver equivalent ounces. I think you've got to be well over 100 million ounces at this point, maybe even 125 million. How do we value that as investors? I mean, obviously we could throw a $3 per ounce price on it and come up with some ballpark, number. How do you value it?
So we are a unique company that way. I mean, most companies that start off, like Van Gold and into Guanajuato Silver, usually, pardon me, they're more exploration oriented rather than production oriented. We've taken a different path and tried to take some of these old mines, smaller old mines, put them back into production. as you say, Rob, like, there have been times over the last 2 or 3 years where it looked pretty bleak. I think, generally speaking, the company, many people within the company, underestimated the amount of capital that was going to be necessary to bring the mines back into lively production. I don't know that that's entirely behind us yet. We continue to spend money ravenously at all of the operations to make up for lack of capital spending by previous operators and previous owners for many years. And so that's been tough. However, as you say, with the prices of gold and silver where they are, that makes up for a lot of capital spending and makes up for a lot of errors. So how does one value the company? I think you got to wave your arms a little bit and be a little bit imaginative. But I think if we add it up, I think it's going to be difficult not to come to the conclusion that we can do certainly well over 5 million silver equivalent ounces next year. And if we've still got some work to do in terms of making those ounces more profitable. But if we assume that this and other initiatives that the company's been doing for the last, 18 months probably, will really kick in and have some efficacy, then I think in that moment, you're looking at a company that's very, very much undervalued.
Yeah, 5 million silver equivalent ounces in 2026 would be a great achievement. And then what would the all-in cost ballpark be for those 5 million ounces?
Yeah, okay. And, caveat.
Yeah, I got to ask though.
I'm just an investor with an opinion and waving my arms. I think driving towards let's say $25 all-in silver equivalent, all-in cost silver equivalent. I think that makes some sense for our company. Yeah,
that would be a great year.
I think, and then if you do the back of the envelope arithmetic and then look at our market cap, I think you go, wow, holy smokes, there's a lot of upside here. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not, I want to be clear to your audience, Rob. I don't think we're quite there just yet, but with the ability to be able to make every ounce more profitable at San Ignacio, for instance, because of the San Ignacio Bolanitos integration and some of the other efficiencies that we can gain by having Bolanitos in the portfolio, I'm very optimistic that we're on the right course here.
Yeah, 5 million silver equivalent ounces would be a record year for the company. I know that back in 2023, there was a period of time when you were putting out a forecast where you thought you'd reach 4.8 million ounces in 2024. And then things obviously changed in a big way. You had to really pull that back. Share price went through some volatility there for a year or so. Now you're back on the upswing, and that's a good ambition to have, especially at that $25 per ounce cost. We can all do our math based upon $51 silver and come up with numbers. Obviously, that would be very positive for the share price if you're able to achieve those two targets. And obviously, we have to see what the Q3 results were, what the Q4 is going to, look like. And then, obviously in the new year, once this transaction is fully closed, I'm sure you'll put out some guidance for what you think the year will actually look like. So let's talk about the closing of the transaction. The news release said it will close in January. Obviously, you have to pay $30 million US cash to close the deal and give them $10 million in stock. Do you have the funds to make that happen? Will you need to do anything else to actually close this deal?
We have the funds. It leaves us, with a company with, in that moment, 5 producing mines. In that moment, 4 producing flotation plants. I think it leaves us a little bit shy of working capital. I do not want to do another equity raise. I think the company has done plenty of that. But we have been talking to a number of providers. What I'd like to have is a revolver of some kind, Rob, so that we draw money if necessary, if we absolutely need it. But in that moment, I think that the company should be steady state and spending money that it makes in the mining industry.
That's great. Okay, so you have enough to close the deal in January, and you're working on another deal to give you basically a line of new credit that you can access if you absolutely need to.
That's right. Just having a little bit more financial flexibility.
Okay, very good. When will we see what the Q3 results were?
In just a few days, and
Okay.
a lot of the things, Rob, that I've foreshadowed for you here will be in that. We continue to spend money aggressively at all of the operations, and I think now really is the time to do it because of the better metal prices.
Very good. Is there any thought about hedging any of the production up here at $51 silver and $4,100 gold, or is that something you just don't want to do?
Well, as you know, the one piece of debt that the company has is a gold loan, and that was done deliberately by Guanajuato Silver because I think it acts as a natural gold hedge. Therefore, I don't think we need to hedge. I think we're in a good position. And when I look, this only happens a couple times in a lifetime, but when I look at all of the supply demand picture for silver, especially, I just don't see much downside pressure. Now, I don't want to be the silver mining CEO that never sees a price that's too high. But I think we've got momentum. I think there's lots of reasons for the price of silver to go higher. The gold silver ratios, hasn't, it's still too high in my view. I think we still have a supply deficit for silver, and I think we're going to be going into the 5th year in a row like that. So I think that's really important. One thing too that I just want to go to this slide here, Rob. Something that you alluded to earlier, and I do think it's important. There's a lot of silver companies in central Mexico, smaller companies, not unlike Guanajuato Silver, and a lot of them are more silver byproduct companies. We're very much a silver company, and especially we're very much a precious metals company. So if you want silver and gold and not too much in the way of base metals, we're your company. And a relatively high cost levered producer to the price of silver and gold, we're that guy, right? We're the company that you're looking for if you want that kind of exposure.
Very good. Yeah, and that's actually really nice. That's a very attractive aspect of the company, and also just you got to go visit this area of Mexico and see it for yourself, because these are fantastic mines in a great location where you can actually be a tourist and go and stay in the town and enjoy the food and the culture, and then go outside of that. Or actually, one of the operations is right in the town. And you can actually see the mines. So it's a very unique setting, and in some sense, I think it's one of a kind. So, I get why you continue to acquire and build this, larger and larger. Going back to Bolanitos, James. So do the keys change hands on January 1st, or what's the process there? And when does the cash start to come into your bank account? From the mining operation?
Yeah, so I can't say categorically that that's the case, but both parties are driving towards a 1st of January / 5th of January. 5th of January kind of, I think it'd be like the first real business day that everybody declares business day in January, and exactly how the accounting works for that, I'm going to let our respective CFOs work that out. But yeah, we're driving towards a first week in January closing, and I don't see any impediments here at this point to complete that.
So when you close the acquisition, the team that's there on site stays there, and now they're your employees. Do you have to add any more labor?
No, I don't think so. I mean, just, generally speaking, yes. But we're buying Endeavor's Bolanitos subsidiary, and it's called Bolanitos Cebada, a Mexican company. They own it 100%. We're buying the shares of Bolanitos Cebada. So in that moment, when the transaction closes, we own the company that's producing gold and silver at the Bolanitos mine and all of the other assets of that company. So from that moment on, from an accounting perspective, Rob, I guess that sort of answers your question. The gold and silver is to Guanajuato Silver's account.
Okay, very good. And then from a capital market standpoint, James, look, you're a pretty big company now. I mean, once this deal closes, and if things go, relatively smoothly in 2026, this is suddenly a pretty major mining company with you're 300 million today. Could be a lot higher in 2026 if you hit those targets that you talked about earlier. Is there any plan to do an uplisting in the U.S.?
More of an idea than a plan. We've talked about it. Hasn't really been a focus. One thing that's a great feature of Guanajuato Silver is our liquidity. The stock trades. You can buy it. You can sell it. People like that. Uplisting in the United States absolutely has its benefits. It's also got a couple of detriments. One of them is the expense, the accounting expense. It's not like it's I don't know, be $1.5 million probably extra a year just to say that we've got that. But the other thing, it would require a consolidation of our shares in order to get a significantly higher share price. The U.S. regulators would or the NASDAQ rule makers or the NYSE rule makers would insist on that. And so it's a balancing act, right? The lesser liquidity is that what shareholders are interested in. So I'm not sure. It's an idea. We've bandied it about from time to time. Hasn't really been a focus. Perhaps it will be in the new year.
Very good. Yeah, I think that's a logical way to think about it. I mean, like, obviously, it would be nice to be on the NYSE and get some more passive flows and maybe get included in some more indexes. That in a way could pay for itself, but obviously it depends upon a few factors. And the share consolidation would be something that would have to be well timed, to say the least. I definitely want to applaud you on your timing. The timing of the early October, late September financing was very good, and I've noticed this company has done a good job of raising capital on the best terms that you can, and I think that matters. I know retail investors always hate companies that announce private placements, but it's the reality of the business, especially when you're building out a larger company. You chew through money. That's just the nature of the business until everything gets really optimized. So you've done a good job in 2025, and I think it's starting to pay off now.
Well, that's very kind. As you say, there's a lot of investors that don't like additional dilution at any time, at any price, at any cost. And so, sometimes in social media and stuff, I suffer the slings and arrows of those opinions. So thank you for that. I guess one thing that I would say, there is dilution if you're putting out shares and it is dilutive to the assets of the company. That's one thing. If it's accretive to the assets of the company, well, that's good. I am the CEO of the company. I'm also the chairman. My wife and I are very large shareholders of the company. I don't issue additional shares just for shits and giggles, right? I mean, if there's something good to acquire and we can use our currency to be able to do that, I haven't been shy about it. As a caveat to that, of course, Guanajuato Silver has made some mistakes along the way, and we've had costs that are too high. A lot of that. So, do we have more shares issued currently than I would have wanted or than was the plan 3 or 4 years ago? Yes. Although on the other hand, if you just sort of pound for pound, share for share, I'd like to see us compared with some other company that went from 0 to having 5 producing mines in a 5-year period. I mean, I think the comparables are few and far between, right?
Yeah, I think investors need to understand the nature of this business, and to grow like this company has grown over the last 5.5 years requires dilution. It's the nature of the beast. It's one of the only ways you're going to be able to attract new capital is to sell more shares into the market. That's why, it's a public company. That's one of the key reasons why it's a public company, or else you just be private and then you wouldn't have any slings and arrows, right? So I think it's just, important for people to understand that financings are part of the business. And so we need to expect them. It's a public company. You have to publish your financials on a quarterly basis, and everybody can read those financials and see the trends and costs and whatever. And also, you've been pretty forthright in this conversation, I think. So, people just digest the data and the information that's available to you. And it's a silver and gold vehicle. So if an investor has a positive outlook on the future for silver and gold prices, this is one way to play it, and it could be a very good way to play it. But that's up to each, investor to do their own DD and find the answer to that question for themselves. One more question, then I'll give you the last word, and we can wrap it up, James. So Carlos Silva is retiring at the end of the year, and Rick Trotman is the senior VP of mining operations now. Does that basically mean that Rick is taking over for Carlos now? And are there any other key players on the team that we should know about?
Well, it's a big team down here. First of all, yeah, Carlos has been our chief operating officer for 2 years. He's made a lot of changes, a lot of positive changes. Carlos made the decision that it was time for him to move aside and to retire. He's had a number of different successes in mining in Mexico over the years, and I think it's the time has come for him to spend more time with his family, and so I respect that. What I didn't want to do was do sort of a like for like change, in terms of that title. Rick Trotman joined us first on a contractual basis maybe 8 months ago, in order specifically to do the due diligence necessary for Bolanitos. And Rick and I have known each other for 10 years. We've never really had the opportunity to do business together. Everything that I saw and enjoyed with Rick's focus and analytical abilities, to being able to analyze the Bolanitos transaction, very quickly I saw a usefulness to use those skills and move them towards our current operations and say, look, like, these costs are too high, Rick. Why is that? And for him to be able to dive down into that. We've made some other recent personnel changes within Guanajuato and within the company in Mexico, all of which I think are beneficial. Jesus Nunez, who's been our head of finance, will have a vice president of administration and finance role now, and he's been with the company for 2.5 years. Angel Gomez was the manager of Topia, really, which arguably our best mine, for the last 18 months or so. He's been elevated to VP of operations, and we've attracted Alejandro Cano as our head of technical services. So those 3 guys working with and under the analytical direction of Rick Trotman, that will be the operations team moving forward.
Very good. Thank you for that update. Look, I don't think we'll speak again, at least not in this format, until the new year. So I'll give you the last word and let you tell investors what they can expect from the company in 2026.
So I think in 2026, what you can expect. We've made so many investments into this company over the last 2 or 3 years to be able to transition this company from a bunch of old and small mines into something that really is a generator of gold and silver production in central Mexico. We've built the company very swiftly, and I think just now we're really going to be able to reap the benefits of that. Once again, if a client, if an observer, if an investor wants exposure to silver and gold in central Mexico with a real silver flavor, we're your company.
James Anderson, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Rob. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.